Yeah, no, fabulous. And I must admit, before we kind of had the distant connection, I wasn't really sure much about you. And by now I feel really comfortable that I've got a better sense of who you are. So thank you very much for feeling that maybe we have some relevance to this. And it's really nice to see the warmth between you all, and the sideline chat, which for me is actually where the social gold comes from, rather than the formality, because we love a formality, don't we? And we love a structure, and we all get a bit anxious if we think we haven't got some kind of scaffolding to hold our conversations around. But just in terms of being here, thanks again. Is adult education on the edge? I don't know. I've no idea. You can tell us some of that. But is there a need for adult education? Is there a need for adult learning? Absolutely, more than ever, as you've already highlighted from many of the contexts that, again, you've already illuminated, and as you've done your research, as you're looking around at the context of today, and as seeing how social divides are growing, and confidence and fear are real issues. And you touched on the issue of feeling safe, but it's also not feeling frightened, which is an absence of a positive. But debt and context of life is driving people into feeling quite frightened and quite withdrawn. And so the environment in which people are operating is often reactive. And so we need to absolutely understand the wider context as to why people are feeling like that. Community is not a thing. It's a rich and complex and challenging environment. We need to go out and be confident to seek out jeopardy, as well as huddling for comfort with people that we all like and respect, and reinforce our own warm feeling about that we're right and that we've got it right and they're wrong, and if it was all like this, it would be okay. Because clearly communities are amazing, rich, diverse, interesting and challenging, and look, communities of interest through to geographical communities. And the solutions are there, and I'll come back to some of that in a minute. But just to start with, kind of who the hell are we? Who are we, this People's Powerhouse thing? Well, we came out of a protest where the Northern Powerhouse, a group of male businessmen, and I'm not doing the gender thing too much, but male businessmen came together and hijacked the North and made a statement about the future of the North and how it was going to look. And there was a protest by a range of people, local authority leaders, others saying, hang on a minute, this isn't a diverse or a group of people who have had permission to talk about the North. And because of social media, there was then a lot of chat about it. And in 2017, a range of people got together, and the People's Powerhouse was formed. And people decided that the North was about the people. It wasn't about people self-selecting to be spokespeople on behalf of the North. It was also very clearly a place where there was to be a discussion about the North in all its beauty and all its forms. And it wasn't an economic conversation just about how we create wealth or prosperity in the North. It has to be a much more diverse and challenging and interesting conversation than that. So from there, in 2017, we've had an annual convention. We were in Doncaster the first year, we were in Sunderland the year after, we were in Bradford the year after that, we were in COVID the year after that, so we're all at home in our slippers. And then this coming year, we're going to Blackpool in this November, but again, it'll be primarily virtual. So we've actually, we're a platform, we're not a hierarchy. Our objectives are to create wider influence, they're to get power in the room, they're to empower people, and they're also to call out poor practice. And we have hundreds of organisations from east to west of the North, and individuals, and we don't have an identity. Our identity is what people in the North want it to be. It might be trying to get Bury Football Club to survive. It might be getting all the mayors in the room together to talk truth to power. It might be, oh, it's whatever people want the people's powerhouse to be. And during COVID in particular, we were challenged by economic issues, and we were challenged by all the stuff around racial justice and all the issues that were emerging. So during the high time around COVID, when people were in complete lockdown, and as you know, the North suffered really spectacularly from repeated lockdowns, we actually developed an economic justice network and a racial justice network. And so those two networks have been operating during that period, alongside other wider stuff in relation to, in particular, in relation to climate and stuff. So we've, the challenges for the North have been around the negative linguistic around it, that it's associated with negativity in terms of comparisons. And there's no doubt that if you look at the data, it's staggering in terms of there has been a national decline in life expectancy, as we know, which is a disgrace for a country that is this prosperous. But it has been particularly stark in the North. We've seen the highest level of COVID tragedy in the North as a result of a whole range of economic and social factors. And so we're trying to stay connected. We have a COVID families network. We're working with those families to look to, you know, for a national inquiry, but also more than that, so that government don't hide behind a kind of national inquiry, that we're actually looking to look beyond the superficial narratives into why things have happened. I mean, you very articulately, Sharon, talked about local authorities and so forth, but if we've seen 50% reduction in local authority infrastructure, we've actually, we've seen a decimation of many of the things that we hold dear and many of the things that actually are part of our infrastructure that keep our society moving. We are the most centralised country in the UK anyway, and part of our role is to argue for more devolution so that the north of England does have an opportunity to have its own voice. And local authorities only raise 10% of income through tax at the moment anyway. And so we, again, whenever we look at issues, we then move into economics, and economic justice is really where all our arguments take us, which is about how we see ourselves in terms of how we grow our prosperity, our emotional prosperity, as much as our practical prosperity. And so if we look at where austerity hit, it was in relation to not just things that we hear, you know, oh, poor people getting poorer. It was a decimation of our infrastructure, about our, you know, things in relation to flood management, things in relation, as you guys know, to research, things in relation to all kinds of building blocks and infrastructure that were part of our civic connectivity. And so for people who are more vulnerable, those things become even more important, because that fear, that anxiety that people are just living on the edge economically, anything that jeopardizes them further can be totally disastrous. And we've seen through the lack of social housing, a tragic record in the UK about the building of social housing. And I'm talking about social housing, not affordable housing that people can't afford, but actually that whole sense of, we have really got one model, which is that we have to earn enough money in order to buy ourselves out of difficulty. And that erosion of our sense of civic life and civic responsibility and connectivity is like a soft edge in all of this. We've profiled the mayors across the north. We think that the democratic structures that are emerging are great, and it's been really good to see the mayors having a voice. My own mayor in Greater Manchester got himself into terrible difficulty because he spoke out very strongly against the government. and we've seen the central government work around him now and work directly with his own MPs. So we haven't got a true democracy. We haven't got a clear democratic settlement for the North. We've got deals with some mayors, with some geographies, and other parts of the North have no mayoral representation at all. So this is a used car salesman culture where we're actually seeing deals being done behind closed doors. And actually, we in the People's Powerhouse are calling for a democratic settlement for the whole of the North, so that we are clear where our accountability sits, where decisions are being made, and most importantly, how those decisions can be formed and how policy can evolve. At the moment, it is just behind closed doors, and this has led to all kinds of frustrations from many parts of the North, where people are being played off against each other, and resources, finite resources, are going to places where there is, let's say, a warmth of political connectivity rather than actual intellectual need. So we're seeing clearly through our platform, which again, I want to emphasize, we don't have a hierarchy. I do strongly believe that hierarchies and institutions are part of the problem, not part of the solution. And we have to look very, very carefully at how a new generation needs a new democracy, where there is far more openness and ability to influence. So for me, I kind of just, want to reassure you that we're totally connected to what you're saying and what you're understanding. But for us, education is absolutely not an institution. It shouldn't have an institutional identity. And the institutions themselves may not be embedded well enough into their real communities. We're hearing too much emphasis on the word engagement, and I think that that's patronizing. I think communities own their assets in their community and literally should own them. So in terms of why are all the public institutions building their own buildings? Why are housing organizations competing for plots of land that are driving up the price, so that, again, the public institutions can't really come together? So, and the institutions must seek out jeopardy as much as seek out consensus. So we are more and more retreating away from people that we don't agree with, and we're huddling for comfort with those that we do. So we have to get into these economic debates about extractive wealth. We mustn't celebrate an investment in a community if we know that that's a short-term investment, and in fact the economic value of that is going elsewhere. So it is really important that we remind ourselves that communities are amazing, rich, complex, and so forth. Now, I just want to kind of leave the final thought, which is about the argument about the state is that, it's a bit clunky, it's a bit expensive, it's a bit slow, it doesn't kind of do the doing. And the market, on the other hand, is innovative and it's fiscally competent and it brings results. And then in the middle, you have something called a community, where you try and bring those two things together. But in fact, you don't actually bring them together. You just end up with a bit of a vague muddle. And our argument is that there needs to be a new economic solution in terms of a fourth way, which is actually where we do give assets to communities. We do empower people to find their own solutions, and that we don't just see community as something that we do things to, or that we engage with when we want something from them. So for me, there is a strong fourth way, which is actually hard economics, assets in communities, people being able to build up their own resilience, and that we are very clear that we are all then stronger together. And that's me.
Edna, that was great. That was to set that what we've been talking about in that broader context. There are echoes of some of the things we talked about before, but there's also a wider set of issues that were, and challenges, which I think were really great to hear. So thanks for that.